Assassin's Creed's silliest secrets trace back to files a broken man planted for someone else to find. Subject 16 spent months inside Abstergo Industries' Animus project, some sessions running for days at a time until he started leaving blood-written symbols behind. Desmond Miles found what was left of him in coded messages scattered across 2 entire games. That's why today I'm breaking down 8 of the coolest hidden secrets in the Assassin's Creed series and exactly what they mean, starting with the concealed bookshelf that turns a quiet Renaissance villa into something far stranger. Monteriggioni. Monteriggioni hides an assassin sanctuary beneath Villa Auditore, a secret easy to mistake for an alien mystery even though the game frames it as a memorial chamber. It's sealed behind a bookshelf, and reaching it is part of the story, though claiming the armor takes real legwork. Find the right shelf, and the wall swings open onto stone steps leading into a chamber built to honor the memory of the Assassin Order and protect its secrets, lined with the tools and names of assassins who came before him. Ezio Auditore lost his father and 2 brothers to a rigged execution before he set foot in Monteriggioni. His uncle Mario owns the estate and shows Ezio the sanctuary beneath it during the story, and Ezio inherits the weight of that history, along with the family trade of putting knives into people who deserved it. The official version of this space is simple. It's a hidden assassin sanctuary and memorial chamber tucked under an ordinary Tuscan home. 8 Roman god statuettes are scattered around the town itself, and placing each matching pair on the 4 pedestals behind Villa Auditore reveals 2,000 florins per pair for 8,000 florins in total. It's optional, and the real challenge is tracking down all 8 statues. Separately, scattered across the wider map, sit 6 assassin tombs, each awarding 1 seal after its traversal challenge. They're separate locations, but all 6 seals get carried back to the sanctuary beneath Villa Auditore to unlock the armor of Altair. The sanctuary and the 6 assassin tombs are presented as assassin sites, and nothing in either space ties them to the first civilization the advanced precursor race fans often call alien-like. Still, the concealed entrance, the statuette pedestals, and the separate seal mechanism read like a pattern lifted straight from a series built on doors hiding gods underneath, and it's the kind of coincidence that makes an Isu connection tempting to imagine even though the game never confirms one. The next room that fools players the same way sits behind a wall everyone already trusts completely, and the ground underneath it turns out to belong to a different reality than the one the player thinks they're standing in. Brotherhood. You can pause the story of Ezio Auditore mid-fight, walk out of the Animus like you're clocking off a shift, and land inside a villa that has aged 500 years in the time it took you to press 1 button. That's the Leave Animus option in Assassin's Creed, Brotherhood, and it does exactly what it sounds like. 1 menu choice drops you out of Renaissance Italy and puts you back in Desmond Miles' body, standing in the same building Ezio calls home. Except now it's a modern-day command post where the assassins are searching for Ezio's Apple of Eden, an artifact they believe could help avert a catastrophe. The setup is simple on paper. Desmond and the rest of the modern assassins are using Villa Auditore as their base while they search for that same apple, the same object connected to the warnings Clay Kaczmarek left behind as Subject 16. Desmond is walking through the wreckage of that warning, and the villa is where he's supposed to pick up the trail. Around that base, scattered outside the Animus entirely, sit hidden artifacts, objects placed around modern-day Monteriggioni for players willing to leave the Animus and explore. Documented runs list multiple pickups tucked into the villa grounds and the land around it, placed in Desmond's modern layer of present-day Monteriggioni. Some of that modern layer swaps Renaissance frescoes for modern furnishings, the same walls dressed for a different century. That's the confirmed part. The specific claim about one room built around a modern-day photograph is thinner. Nothing in the documented material locks down a single defined room tied to one image, but the pattern still tracks. The description appears to combine the confirmed hidden artifacts with the game's other modern-day clue material into one clean, quotable location, the kind of detail that sounds more thrilling than the boring, true version. What's real either way is the trick underneath it. The villa is one static building holding 2 separate timelines, and the modern-day layer is where the documented hidden artifacts are waiting. You've now got a version of a bookshelf's quiet suggestion built into an entire estate. Leave the story, look again, and the building hands you information it withholds while you're playing the hero. Once you learn to distrust the surface of a room, the city itself starts handing you visual evidence that turns history into a conspiracy. The UFO. Somewhere in Assassin's Creed II's Renaissance Italy, some fans insist, a flying saucer is hiding in plain sight. Assassin's Creed 2 has a long-running fan claim about a UFO, but no checked guide documents an explorable flying saucer at a confirmed location on the map. That's a strange claim to make about a game whose glyphs, puzzle solutions, and Easter eggs have been extensively documented by guides and players. The glyphs and their puzzles have been cataloged in detail, but the checked documentation still does not provide a confirmed map address for a physical UFO. The claim didn't come from nowhere, though. Assassin's Creed 2 places glyphs on building walls and other out-of-the-way surfaces. Scan one with Eagle Vision and the game opens a series of varied puzzles, including several that manipulate images. Solve enough of them and you unlock the truth, a sequence assembled from image-based clues, hidden messages, and other puzzle revelations. That sequence is where the conspiracy machinery actually lives. Flip a photo through the right filter, and a crowd scene reveals a glowing outline standing among the humans, unbothered by everyone around it. Adjust contrast on another, and a shape in the sky stops looking like a bird and starts looking like a craft with a hull. The puzzles reward the exact instinct the whole series is built on. Stare at a normal picture long enough and it eventually turns into evidence of something bigger. Subject 16, Clay Kaczmarek, hacked the Animus and hid the glyph material in encrypted fragments. The game ties him to the truth, but the checked sources don't establish that exposing Abstergo was his goal or that the mission cost him his sanity. Every distorted frame still plays like a transmission from someone slipping, whatever exactly pushed him there. The glyphs form a set of individual puzzles that contribute to the truth using image-based clues, codes, and other varied solutions. The UFO lacks that anchor entirely. Multiple detailed rundowns of the glyph puzzles skip it completely, and one widely circulated reference on the claim states outright that the object might not even be in the game at all. Nothing in the documented glyph list confirms a UFO players can actually walk up to on the Assassin's Creed 2 map, no matter how many times the theory gets repeated. Maybe it's an environmental object nobody ever managed to flag correctly. Maybe it's a glyph frame that got mislabeled somewhere between forums a decade apart. Maybe the whole claim wandered in from a different Assassin's Creed game entirely and just never left. The exact answer stays open, and the belief has clearly outlived the evidence built to support it. That same game hides a separate, fully documented Easter egg. Pull a lever in an assassin tomb, wait by the water, and a cutscene shows a large squid or octopus swimming past. Glass harmonica. An instrument inside Connor Kenway's house is listed in the Assassin's Creed 3 official game guide as a post-game Easter egg, but the released game has no confirmed accessible event for it. That's either the internet's most patient rumor or the smallest ghost story in the whole trilogy. Take your pick. Davenport Manor contains the glass harmonica as environmental set dressing, alongside the estate's functional homestead features. The place doubles as Connor's actual base of operations, complete with unlockable crafting buildings and gear that support daily life on the frontier. The guide describes the interaction as occurring after the game is beaten, but it does not identify a save flag or establish how the condition was implemented. Somewhere in the development process, a guide writer typed post-game and moved on, leaving the rest of us to figure out what that was supposed to mean. The Assassin's Creed 3 official game guide identifies the glass harmonica as an Easter egg and describes a post-game interaction, although that guide entry does not confirm that the released game contains a working trigger. The instrument itself is a real 18th century invention, built by Benjamin Franklin in 1761, a set of spinning glass bowls played wet-fingered instead of blown or bowed. Mozart composed music for the glass harmonica, and the instrument later fell out of fashion. Play it, and it reads less like a musical instrument and more like an antique appliance somebody forgot to label. Placing an 18th century Franklin invention inside Davenport Manor invites a historical connection even before considering what the guide says about the object. That's the same trick Assassin's Creed 2's glyph puzzles used across multiple regions, just shrunk down to the size of one room. Ezio got painted walls and symbols scattered across cities, and players read that as a message written straight to them. Connor apparently gets the same feeling from one silent object sitting in one silent room, allegedly. Either way, it produces the same reaction. The sudden, uncomfortable sense that somebody on the team left you something private. It's the same pull, whether or not this particular one turns out to be real. Fans commonly call this the Assassin's Creed 1 Easter egg, but the official guide does not identify a specific connection to Altair ibn Lahad or Mashef. That reading comes from the community, attached to an object the documentation never actually names. One reading is that the isolated instrument and the guide's reported post-game condition echo the series' habit of rewarding players who investigate environmental clues. Connor's story ultimately leaves his people displaced from their homeland, while Davenport Manor becomes the place most closely associated with his life as an assassin. That homestead's glass harmonica carries a supposed post-game secret that is not confirmed in the released game, sitting inside the manor house that anchors the whole estate. If a forgotten object can carry a message across eras, the next secret asks how far curiosity can travel through fragments of a damaged mind. Subject 16. A man was driven to psychological collapse after prolonged Animus exposure, leaving warnings about Abstergo behind for the assassins to find. And the Lost Archive turns parts of that wreckage into collectible Decipher fragments. That's Clay Kaczmarek. Codename Subject 16. Abstergo subjected him to prolonged Animus exposure, and the bleeding effect contributed to his psychological deterioration, blurring the line between his own memories and the ones he was forced to relive. Brotherhood hides 10 glyph locations across Rome, each opening a cluster of puzzles that reveals part of Subject 16's warning, less a straightforward puzzle than intercepted static from someone still fighting to get a message out. Revelations gives that static a shape. The Lost Archive runs 7 first-person memories connected to Subject 16, covering Clay's history and the events leading toward his eventual suicide, a heavier way to spend a side quest than most games attempt. Scattered across those memories sit 20 Decipher fragments, collectibles whose complete set unlocks the Archive's hidden final path. Desmond's journey runs on its own track. 5 levels, unlocked by gathering Animus data fragments hidden in Ezio's world. Clear all 5, and Ezio gets to wear an outfit modeled on Desmond Miles, a small reward for finishing a completely separate errand. The glass harmonica earlier turned a forgotten prop into a message that survived centuries. This time, the object talking back is a person, and the signal degrades the closer you get to him. The fragments are collectibles, and collecting all 20 unlocks the Archive's hidden final path. Collecting them for a costume unlock feels almost insulting, but here we are. Brotherhood's glyph messages, the Lost Archive's Decipher fragments, and Desmond's journey are 3 separate systems across Assassin's Creed: Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations. Grouping them together under one label is a fan interpretation rather than an official in-game category. Clay left hidden warnings about Abstergo for the assassins to discover. Desmond inherited the trail instead, one fragment at a time. A trail assembled from broken messages raises a sharper question: can total mastery unlock a different story, and what would that reveal about the player's role? Full synchronization. Some players are convinced Assassin's Creed. Revelations hides a second ending, but the documented alternate ending is a fragment-gated route inside the Lost Archive DLC, separate from the base game's main campaign. That belief may survive because a percentage on screen looks exactly like a locked door, and locked doors invite testing. In games such as Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Revelations, synchronization percentages record whether a player completes the mission's listed optional objectives, with 100% marking full completion of those conditions. In Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, reaching 100% synchronization for a sequence can unlock a cheat that is usable during memory replay. Assassin's Creed 3 uses the same percentage to grade optional objectives inside individual missions, scoring how cleanly you finished a job. Desmond's ancestors were already going to finish anyway. Revelations folds 100% story memory completion into achievement tracking and overall completion progress, the kind of number that looks great on a save file with no reviewed guide connecting it to an alternate ending. Community threads treat this like an open case file. Some players point to a specific post-credits scene, and a few insist that reaching exactly 100% produces a different camera angle. Though the reviewed synchronization and achievement guides list no such reward among documented completion requirements, and the search was limited to walkthroughs and achievement trackers. These claims fail to establish a common documented trigger, while the ending that is actually documented sits in the Lost Archive, reached by collecting all 20 Decipher fragments and breaking the loop. No document, patch note, or credits sequence ties a distinct base game finale in Revelations to full synchronization alone. What fills the gap is the instinct that built this whole video, the same one that turns a completion screen into a message worth decoding, treating a reward or post-credit beat as more significant than the game itself establishes. The reviewed guides identify no second finale unlocked by full synchronization outside the Lost Archive's fragment-gated loop. The pattern here is thin, built from one habit doing all the work, a genre that has hidden real secrets in real numbers before, asking a player to believe every remaining number hides one too. That belief is the actual mechanism, more than any code Ubisoft wrote. The obsessive completionist chasing a phantom ending is searching a filing cabinet that was already fully labeled before they opened it. When perfect execution appears to promise a revelation, the most spectacular secrets become the ones the player can physically operate. Flying machine. Ezio Auditore climbs into a glider that never should have worked and somehow ends up airborne over Venice, which is more than can be said for the engineer who built the concept. Leonardo da Vinci's sketchbooks contain flying machine designs, but the surviving evidence does not securely establish a successful flight from them. He drew wings, gears, and pulley systems centuries before the first successful powered airplanes took to the sky. Assassin's Creed 2 puts Ezio directly into one of them for a single-story mission. A man in Renaissance clothing, gliding unarmed through open sky on wings and hope. The whole thing glides on momentum, with strategically placed fires providing the lift needed to keep Ezio airborne, held together by nothing more than a suspiciously generous physics engine. Then Brotherhood decides that's simply not enough. Leonardo's workshop gets an upgrade, and so does the aircraft. Flying Machine 2.0 shows up as a glider bomber, armed with a cannon Ezio can fire at targets below and use to ignite fires on the ground. Picture a man in a leather coat piloting a kite while firing cannon blasts at targets below, and somehow the game plays it completely straight, full ceremony and all. It behaves like a weapon of war because that is the role Brotherhood gives it in the mission. The lift mechanic is the detail that actually earns respect. Fires on the ground create the heat that keeps the machine airborne, so Ezio has to keep igniting useful spots while crossing the map. Full synchronization demands something crueler than good aim, the kind of hidden requirement some players read as evidence of something bigger. Ezio has to complete the entire flight without taking a single hit, which turns a bombing run into a stealth mission with wings. The armed version stays fictional. Historical tradition credits Leonardo's assistant, Tommaso Massini da Peretola, with attempting a flight of roughly a kilometer in 1505, landing badly enough to break a leg. The steerable fire-returning version flying through Brotherhood's missions is a game invention built centuries later, using Leonardo's concept as raw material rather than a blueprint. Clay Kaczmarek spent his sanity chasing patterns that some players read as things Abstergo wanted buried, though the games never spell out that motive, and here the game hands the player a pattern that costs nothing but a little practice and patience. Fly clean, use the fires right, and the fantasy holds together perfectly. Miss the timing once, and gravity reminds you that Leonardo's test pilot, according to that same tradition, broke a bone for less ambition than this. Once you've flown a weapon built out of a 500-year-old sketch, the next mystery waiting on the horizon comes wearing names that sound pulled straight out of an archive, and telling invention apart from history gets harder. Legendary ships. 5 named ships sit at the far edges of the Caribbean, presented as legendary ship encounters without any confirmed one-to-one historical identity, even though their names borrow the atmosphere of real naval history. Black Flag saves this misdirection for its hardest boss fights, with El Impoluto probably the toughest of the 5. El Impoluto, La Dama Negra, HMS Prince, HMS Fearless, and Royal Sovereign all sit in the outer corners of the map, past the shipping lanes and the routes you sail on a normal playthrough, exactly where a rare find is supposed to be waiting. Each one stays locked until you capture the fort guarding its stretch of water, so the game makes you earn the encounter before it even shows you the name. The usual advice is to bring a fully upgraded Jackdaw, which makes the reward feel earned, and the names help build the illusion. El Impoluto translates to the Untainted, sometimes rendered as the Immaculate. La Dama Negra means the Black Lady. Both read like entries pulled from an 18th century Spanish shipping ledger, formal and slightly ominous, the kind of name a vessel earns after surviving something. HMS Prince and HMS Fearless swing to the opposite naming culture, using the British HMS prefix, while Royal Sovereign keeps the more ceremonial name by itself, the naval equivalent of a stage name. The split evokes Spanish and British naval naming traditions, but does not by itself establish a historical balance of power message. Spanish hulls carry the Spanish names, British ships carry the British ones. 2 languages, 2 naval traditions, 5 names, and a level of consistency that turns 4 boss encounters involving 5 named ships into 5 artifacts. Some fans have tried to match the legendary ships to historical vessels, but the available documentation does not confirm those matches as hidden identities. The encounters are difficult boss challenges, and the names alone stop short of confirming specific historical identities. Ubisoft placed 5 named ships in 4 difficult encounters and gave them Spanish and British-style names, which helps the fictional fights feel like recovered history. The theory says more about the player than it does about the ship. Subject 16's collapse is presented through puzzles that Desmond investigates, creating another mystery for the player to interpret. These 5 ships show how much historical atmosphere a name can add to a carefully staged boss encounter. That is the whole engine underneath every secret in this video. A detail placed on purpose and a player willing to fill in everything else for free. 5 ships, Spanish and British-style names, no confirmed one-to-one historical identities, and a historical atmosphere built from naming. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.